Hello, everybody, and welcome to, can you believe it? This is week 12 of the xAPI cohort fall 2021 session. This is it. This is the big reveal. This is what we've been working toward. And I am super excited today to share the stage, relinquish the stage to the teams who've been working hard this semester. We've got 3 demos this week. And I know there are other teams who've been working on things, but not quite ready to demo, and that's totally okay. But I'm really excited to see the work that's been done. I know there's been a ton of preparation that's gone into today, and I am going to make my opening remarks short so we can spend more time with the teams. So let me share my screen here and make sure that I have everything rocking and rolling. And all right, somebody say something out loud if you're not looking at my PowerPoint deck. So we are getting ourselves started. This is the 12th session, and this session is being recorded like all of them. So this will be out there for posterity. And those of you who are eager to submit your work as conference presentations, a lot of times conferences ask for you to have a recording of you presenting. This is your recording of you presenting. So those of you who stepped up to demo today. We are all here, and when I say all here, there are over 600 people signed up for the fall cohort that we have right now. We already have over 40 signed up for next spring. Now, do me a favor right now, while you're listening to me talk, go ahead and sign up for the spring cohort. We will not naturally roll you over. We do not assume that you want to be in on the next one. But the cohort mailing list gets extras that just showing up for the web session doesn't get you, like the recordings, like PowerPoints, like additional information and event stuff. So that's a good place to be. Even if you don't participate in the weekly web sessions, even if you don't participate on a project, being on the list is a good place to be. So we will start up the cohort in the spring, in the late January. We're going to scooch it a little bit earlier than we have lately. And so we'll be starting up in late January, and you won't want to miss a thing. We already have over 150 people signed up for xAPI Party, which is December 10th. We're going to talk about that a little bit as we go today. But xAPI Party, if you haven't signed up, you can also go out to xapicohort.com and sign up for Party there. That's December 10th. We have 2 jam-packed tracks of xAPI awesomeness. We've got a novices, newcomers, case studies, what's the possibility, how do I plan for it track, and then a deep in the weeds, getting down and nerdy on it track. And I'm actually really excited to be able to have something for everyone there. So go ahead and sign up for xAPI Party. Again, all this is free and open source, just like the spec itself. But we are all here. And today, what we are here for is demos. This is the exciting part for today. I'm pretty stoked for this. I am Megan Torrance. I'm finishing up the hosting of cohort this semester from Jess Jackson, who kicked us off. And Jamie Washington is behind the scenes making sure that nothing falls apart. Those of you who are presenting, you'll need to communicate with Jamie, and she is the one who will bring you onto stage when it's your time to shine. Cohort is a welcoming community of experimenters, of adopters, of explorers, of people who want to connect with like-minded people and collaborate. And that means we are accessible and welcoming to everyone, including newcomers. You are not too late to cohort. It is never too late to join. And so what we do is each week we go over some of the basics to help newcomers feel more comfortable with what's going on. And feel free, those of you who are experienced, to reach out and help onboard them as well. Cohort is a free, virtual, vendor neutral, but vendor supported 12-week learning by doing, project-based, team learning experience, and community. My gosh, that is like most of the buzzwords in the learning and development industry. Vendor neutral means you can expect not to be hit up for sales of any product. Vendor supported means you'll often find vendor representatives in the cohort Slack channel who are able to help you with their products. And many of them have also given free, extended, or reduced price trials of their products to help you get started. So that's pretty special and awesome. Cohort happens in a couple different ways. One is this weekly web session. And we record it, we make it easy to access. I know we have there's an entire cohort team operating in Australia. So the other side of the world, this is an utterly inhumane time for them to be watching, so they catch the recordings. And then there's project teams, and you can form a project team, you can join a project team at any point. There are no barriers to join, and simply because you peek in on their Slack channel doesn't mean you've joined or signed up for anything. So it's totally cool. We provide that Slack community and GitHub as a file storage and sharing repository for teams that want to go ahead and build. And it is totally okay to work on a team and never show up on Thursdays. It is okay to show up on Thursdays and not really feel like you're ready or have enough time for a team. All of that is okay. And then everybody gets weekly updates with recordings. That weekly web session follows a curriculum arc. Of course, it's all about learning here, right? Where we start with, what are we doing? How do we send data? How do we receive data? How do we organize and protect and use data? And then what does xAPI mean in that larger space of human performance and learning and career growth? And then today, we get to see the project team demos that have been created as a result. And I'm super excited for that. So I got through what I needed to convey very quickly, but I'm actually going to jump to our closing. So what I normally cover at the closing, I'm going to cover right now. We're going to go with Team CMI 5. We're going to have you demo first. So go ahead and in the chat, if you haven't already, let Jamie know who should be on stage during the presentation, and she will invite you on. While I share a little bit of information about what's just kind of some upcoming dates and whatnot. So we generally give you a preview of what's happening next week. Next week, we will miss you. If you are in the Americas, you may be stuffing your face and enjoying some football and some time with family and friends. But we will not be here next week on Air Meet. We've got a few weeks until our December 10th xAPI party. That'll run from about 10:30 Eastern till 5 p.m. Eastern time, US Eastern time. And go ahead and sign up. I am about, probably by tomorrow, by the time I head home for the weekend, we'll have that schedule posted online for all to see. So if you have any questions, concerns, comments about xAPI cohort or xAPI party, you can email us at xapicohort@torrancelearning.com, or you can message me in the cohort Slack. I am pretty much in there on a every, 2 hours or so basis. You won't have to wait long. And I would love to see everyone here at xAPI Party. It's a super fun time. And as much fun as we had hosting the party at our office, and we eat really good food when we host parties, because that's what parties are all about. We actually find that we have a much broader reach and can connect with more people when they don't have to fly to Michigan for this. I should be clear, xAPI Party is a conference. It's a free one-day conference just about xAPI, right? We call it a party because that makes it sound like a lot more fun. So with that, Let's talk about who is coming up on stage for the team CMI5. This is pretty exciting. I think this is the first time we've had a team working specifically with a CMI5 profile for cohort. And I am very, very excited to see what they have been working on.
Okay, so Team CMI5 create AU. Okay, so you're all familiar with SCORM. And the idea behind CMI5 was to say you've got some parts of SCORM that work really well, but it's got weaknesses. Then came xAPI. It can do other things really well, but it can't do all the things that SCORM does. So CMI5 is a profile that was built to combine the strengths of both and hopefully eliminate the weaknesses of both as well. So we had the goal, and then in September there was a new initiative announced, funded by ADL, done by Rustici Software, to create the catapult. And so what we wanted to do was try and use this out, try and see if we could create CMI5 files using various applications, off-the-shelf applications. And the other thing we were going to do was then try and do it in more creative ways to try and create files, and then test them in the player. And we'll explain more about that as we go along. So we'll talk about the experiences that we've had with installing Docker, installing Catapult, the content testing suite, and we'll have some demos of CMI5 courses that we were able to successfully run and launch in the CTS player, and a little bit of an explanation of how we did that. And we'll wrap up with a summary of some lessons learned and question and answer. So this is the team. It includes Liz, Baron, me, Martin Kobe, Chetan Sachdev, Melissa Marovich, Brian Duck, Henry Ring, and Peter Herman. So xAPI gave us the ability to send detailed data about the learner's actions, but it can't handle the structuring and packaging of a course like SCORM. But CMI5 is a profile that sits on top of xAPI that was created to define how a course is built, loaded, and run using xAPI. And I think Brian is due up next.
The CMI5 project is an ADL project, and Catapult is a product of that project that includes a content testing suite as well as a CMI5 player. And we actually reached out to Rustici and had George join us after he presented to the overall cohort. He was able to join in with our team and help us troubleshoot the install of Catapult using a tool called Docker. Go ahead to the next slide.
Okay.
So Docker is, in a sense, a virtualization environment where you can run other applications without installing them on your native to your computer. And it allows you to, or what it really allows is the developers to support more of a common platform than trying to build a package for Mac, Windows, Linux, and all the different flavors of Linux and the variants. Go ahead to the next one. So in the lower right, you see the URL and the login for the Catapult test suite once you get it up and running. So like I mentioned, Docker is that virtualization engine, and Catapult has actually 3 components which must be running. There's a database that sits behind the web service, which actually runs as an LRS and runs as an LMS to allow you to present a course. And part of the Catapult design is it will run through a series of scripts or procedures that actually will test course content in the CMI5 format and allow you to validate that the course is meeting the standard expected by CMI5. Next slide. So there are multiple versions of the xAPI profiles, and Torrance Learning has actually got an advanced view of that. I spoke with Matt about the design of it, and a bit with Megan about the design of it in the future. And they've elaborated a couple profiles, one of them being CMI5, the other one being video. And here we see the entry for that CMI5 profile. So it will, in conjunction with the ADL's xAPI profile server, allow you to see what the latest version of that profile is, and the URL is at the bottom of the screen. Next slide then. And we're going to have Liz talk a bit about Storyline.
Good afternoon, everyone. So this is the xAPI statements demo course that I created using Storyline. It's basically 5 slides, and there's about 7 statements that are supposed to be sent. So I can actually go through it really quick on here. So this is based off of Devlin Peck's xAPI statement tutorial. Some of the Storyline team may be familiar with it. I edited some of the statements just to make mine a little bit different from that one, and to try my hand at creating statements from scratch. So on here, we're gonna start with a name. So I'm gonna say Liz, email, I'm gonna say test@test.com. So on here, let me refresh, and you'll see that no statement is being sent quite yet. I'm gonna submit, and I did have an issue where I wasn't able to launch the launch statement when the slide started. So I will work on that for the party, and I will definitely have a better use for the launch statement. So on here, since I've already submitted my information, you'll see now that 16 seconds ago, I did get a statement out. And this is the Veracity Learning LRS that I'm using for this demo. What is your favorite color? I'm choosing jade because I know that's the right answer because I created it. And then my favorite state, we want to move to Colorado. So I'm going to say Colorado. And congratulations, I passed. And I'm going to click here. What is your favorite planet? I'm a rebel, so I'm going to say Pluto, regardless of consequences. And I'm going to submit.
Awesome.
And then I'm going to go ahead and exit my course. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh my LRS section over here. And I'm going to refresh it again. So you'll see that I did, in fact, get different statements launched. So again, this was for the first slide. And it tells me my name, the email, because it always needs a name and email, or some sort of identifying information of the actor. So here's my statement. It launched. I have an old type for using the Tin Can API resource section in order for it to identify it, but I will definitely update that. So that's the launch statement. Then there's the answered statement for question 1. So I answered jade. That was the right answer. So there's only 2 questions, so each question is worth 50%. So in Storyline, I had a value that basically added points to each slide. And then, so I answered question 2, I passed. And then for the Pluto one, I responded. So I am able to see my response right here. It says Pluto. And then I added 2 different statements to the very last slide that exits the course just to try to test them out. So one is completed and one is satisfied. And the reason I added 2 of those is because I wanted to make sure to add some of the statements that were actually in the CMI5 profile. I did a mix of statements that are basically part of the SCORM profile, part of the ADL vocabulary, and part of the CMI5. So I can show you my code really quick. Let me just change screens. So on here, I can see, so this is essentially, once you publish from Storyline, I can also pull up my Storyline file so everyone can kind of have a better idea of what I'm doing. So basically, I created my JavaScript statements to execute the different statements within the Storyline file, depending on the trigger. And when you go to publish, the way I got this to work for this specific instance is that I published it as a CMI5 piece in the output options. Shaitan and I were testing this earlier today and noticed that the launch URL launches from index.lms.html. So once I hit publish, it essentially publishes in this format. And the only things that I added were the xAPI statement, the xAPI wrapper, which the xAPI wrapper is directly from the ADL. So that's available for everyone to download. And the xAPI statement is the JavaScript JavaScript functions that are created in order to get the statements to work. So you'll see them here. And then also the story file. So these are the only three things that I edited. The story file, basically you have to, in order to get the statements to work and to hook up to an LRS, I had to add these scripts on here. And since I did mention that we noticed in the storyline file that the launch file is index.lms, Shaitan and I went ahead and added the script on here as well. And he'll have more information on that in his section of the presentation, because we did notice the system that when we tested these through Catapult, it gave us different information based on the launch HTML file. So that's it for my part of the presentation. I'm going to stop sharing now and hand it off to the next person.
So hi, everyone. It's Melissa Marovich, and Peter Herman is with me as well. We are both members of the L&D team for Hydric and Struggles. And so the project that we're looking on is part of the project teamwork is one that we're doing together and is actually a real course that we're working with. So this is a RISE course because we did want to get a little practice with working with RISE and some of the work that we're doing in the project team with Liz doing the storyline project and some of the rest of you doing storyline work. We're using quite a bit of RISE, and so we did want to use that as one of our test scenarios. So Peter, I'm going to just turn it over to you to just describe a little bit about the course that we're working with and the things that we're going to be trying.
Yeah, so we have a course set up through LinkedIn Learning, utilizing a lot of their courses. And once a learner goes through the training, they have to take a quiz. And so we built this quiz out in RISE. And a lot of what we're looking to get back is just the feedback from what they've answered. Did they answer it correctly? If they didn't answer it correctly, what is the correct answer? How long did they take on maybe some of the questions? And extracting that data to be able to look back and say, okay, the average time spent on X question, was this long? Are there any outliers? Is the quiz, accurately capturing, what we need the learners to know at the end of the course, or is there something that we can improve upon, and using those timestamps to be able to show that focus?
So as you can see, we're kind of in early stages here. Peter and I will keep working along with the rest of the team. We need to stand up an LRS and plan to use xAPI for help with writing some statements and going from there. So hopefully we'll get a little bit more work done in the next few weeks, but our focus is going to be on RISE.
Okay, and so the next people we have, or person, is Brian and his experience with Captivate.
So one of the challenges for CMI5 is we were attempting to build AUs within the existing version of Captivate. And Captivate is currently versioned at the 2019 release. We were actually informed by some of the principals at Rusticy Software that Captivate is based on a license to the Rusticy JavaScript engine for xAPI, and Adobe only has a license for an earlier version. And so we found that building a package out of the existing version of Captivate was a challenge. Some of us were able to attend the Adobe e-learning conference this year online. And one of the things they presented, and that's what the screenshots are from, are an upcoming project called Project Charm, which is slated for release in December. and they're actually promising a public beta later this month. So Project Charm is either an update or a replacement to Captivate. They haven't really announced that as in terms of how they're marketing it. But one of the things we're hoping is that with this new release and the focus on it, getting a new product, that they will reach out and license the updated version of the Rustici JavaScript engine for xAPI, and then be able to incorporate some CMI5 advances in that project. So now I need to hand it off to Henry.
Hello, everybody. So my interest in this working group was to figure out how I could use Catapult as a platform or test bed on my desktop so that we can migrate some learning activities that we have that are social learning activities and somehow get them to appear as a xAPI CMI5 course to the rest of the world. So we went through that learning curve of installing Catapult with Docker, and we're kind of pleased to find that that package that we downloaded included several sample lessons. So they're in there, and they're, as you might know, like if you're in Storyline or Captivate, it'll generate a compiled version. These are more accessible to inspect and look under the hood and see how they're working. So we got Catapult up. We use Visual Studio Code to get in and try and learn and understand how the files, the current working CMI5 lessons were assembled. And then we began to exercise them to verify they're working in the platform, and then started to edit and alter and make them our own to suit our needs. So my objective is I'm trying to figure out how to for my use to create kind of a CMI5 xAPI wrapper that I could I have several different learning activities I want to embed or host in an iframe inside of it. And while working on it, it seemed like it might be feasible to just create a shell that might possibly host a Score 1.2 lesson inside of it and be a method to retrofit a wrapper around the course. So it's been a fun ride, and I'll hand it off to whoever's next.
Next is Chetan, and I'll stop sharing the slides because he's going to share his screen now.
Yeah, okay. So I will be showing how to set up the Catapult on the system and how we have achieved it. And we have captured all the steps which we have gone through to set up this environment. Like in the beginning, we mentioned that we need Docker. So this is how Docker looks like. And you need a GitHub repo. So the GitHub repo of Catapult is on this one, adlnet/catapult. And if you see, there are these three main folders, LTS, CTS, and player, which include all the code for running this application. And this course examples is, these are some of the samples which are available, courses, which we can test them against. But I will be testing it against the course which is created by Liz. If we see here, we can see that CTS, it is running 3 services. So we have the player, we have the web service, and the RDBMS, which is MySQL. These 3 services need to be running, and if you are able to see it, here it is running on port 63398, and web service is running on 63399. Let's go back to the code base once. So once you clone it, you actually need to configure the environment variables. So you need to supply the ports. You need to also configure the LRS endpoint, because the 4th component to run this is LRS. Here I'm showing the URL and credentials of my LRS, which is on SconCloud. So let's go here and open the web service. Once you have done those steps of environment configuration, and once your Docker image is working fine, you will be prompted with creating an admin account. And once you have created, you will be presented with a screen like this. It will be empty in the beginning. So let me try to create a new course here. browse, and I have a course which was demoed by Liz. So I have this zip file. Now this, when you try to import it, the Catapult will actually look for cmi5.xml to be available. So ensure that you are zipping all the files and not the folder. Here you can see the course structure, and it means this is having one course and one assignable unit. And we can click on test. Here we can generate a random actor. I will change this to my name. Now, on the right side, I have this SCOM cloud open to capture the statements. So let me launch the course now. So here you can see when the course is launched, we get these first 4 statements: launched, initialized, attempted, experienced. And now this course is asking me to create another actor. So let's create an actor. Let's say Liz. I clicked it fast. So let's see now. So now you can see these statements are now which are sent by the course. So the course itself is sending a launched and sending an answered event statement, basically, right? And then you see these names. These names means these are actually the statements which are getting generated by the Catapult player. So, and we refresh it, and then we can see again. We got an answered statement and a past statement, and then these are the statements which are coming from the Catapult player. So I will go for Mars because I think that's readable now. Click on submit and refresh. So we can see that the satisfied and experienced statements are sent. And once we click on the exit course, it takes some time to close it, and then it will return back. And if we go back here and click on this close, here we can see that all the statements are conformant to the CMI5 spec. So this way we can test a course which could be created in any of the authoring tools available in the market. We have evaluated Storyline, Rise, Captivate is in progress, and few more. Now, if you need the steps to, like how we have done the setup of Catapult, there is a video recording available, and this link is available in the slide deck. The slide deck will be, and the remaining material will be available here. So let me just now pass on to the next person, Martin.
The other thing that CMI5 promises is device OS browser independence. And that means you don't have to run it in an LMS. You don't have to run your course content in a browser. You can have a mobile app, you could have a desktop app, and the content doesn't have to be hosted on the same domain as the LMS. The content could be hosted somewhere else. However, it's a work in progress. During that hour, or a couple hours actually, of George Vilch's time, I asked about this, and he said, one of the quotes was, he said, "I don't know of anyone in the world who is currently working on the documentation for this." So that meant, okay, I'm on my own here. And he pointed to 8.3 in the spec, which says currently only supporting launching in the browser. So while these are potential uses, it is not. There's no clear recipe how to do it. But he gave me some idea. So basically the ideas is from the desktop, you log into the LMS, and then the LMS has to provide back to your application all of this information that they were using, an endpoint for the LRS, a fetch URL, which has a token, the actor's name, registration, and the activity ID. And then once it has that, then it can send statements to the LRS. So this is still a work in progress. So stay tuned. So first we'll have our xAPI party. And so some of the things we started, hopefully we'll be farther along on. And we're going to continue this cohort or this team in the next cohort, the spring 2021. So we've learned quite a bit about getting Catapult to run, how CMI5 works, what's its purpose, and we're learning that it's still it's just been launched in September. Like actual, let's get going, let's start to accelerate, get people to promote it, and so, or get people to adopt it. So we've got the slide deck available, has lots of links for you to follow up, and our courses that we uploaded are there. There's a GitHub link, and the video for setting up with Catapult is there, and it's also chaptered. So it's chaptered so you can look at different topics that were covered. So that's it, basically. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, team. Jamie's going to take this team off, leaving Brian Duck up for his session. Brian, I'm going to stop talking and let you just roll right into it. Thank you so much, Team CMI5AU. And now we have Team's xAPI Profile. All right, Brian lost connection. Judy, do you want to jump in? Because I'm not sure. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead. This is going to be like the second part than the first part of this team's presentation. But the second part is that we're going to talk about the xAPI profile that we ended up creating as a team, which is the one for PeBL Pro. We've done a lot of PeBL work in the cohort, including some work on which verbs that it outputs for different types of interactions. And so, and in some ways, it was kind of a continuation of that work. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm just going to take a few minutes. Hopefully, Brian will pop back on. And we're doing this for the we're doing a more in-depth dive for the party as well. So. The reasons that we wanted to create a profile, we wanted to make sure that everything in the xAPI for this tool is very well documented for all potential users, whether it's an internal learning organization or any other tools that might end up using the xAPI that is exported. So the LRS's data viz tools, et cetera. And we also wanted to give ourselves a chance to kind of get some more community eyes on the xAPI that we're outputting. And get some more input. Our team has definitely learned some since we did the last pass on the xAPI that we are outputting. And so actually we were really, really glad that we did that from that perspective. And speaking of, this is a glimpse of the process that we went through. At this point, we have done all of the work that we've done the work that needs to be done on the verbs, but there are other concepts as well that we'll have to have some work done on them. So we are going to keep working on this probably in the next cohort as well. So if anybody is interested in joining in to, actually participate in creating an xAPI profile from the authoring tool perspective, I'm sure that we would love to have you. So some of the things that we did when we took our documentation of the verbs that in the statements that PeBL Pro outputs, we either found that they did successfully resolve to an existing concept and verb. They needed to just be changed. They were not we are actually changing the programming of the xAPI that's output. Perhaps they needed to be resolved to a different concept or verb, or they actually are going to have new concepts or verbs. We're not necessarily changing what is output, but we are documenting and creating the concepts within the profile for the things that, for the verbs that PeBL Pro outputs. So just a quick tour of what it was like to create the working group and start creating the profile in the profile server. It was really exciting to do this, working on this new tool. It's very slick. First of all, I didn't know this, but the first thing you have to do is create a working group. So you have to go in, create an account, and create a working group. So there is the PeBL Pro working group right there. If you have an account or want to create an account on the xAPI profile server and join our ongoing effort, you are welcome to join the PeBL Pro working group. So that's my my sales pitch. I'd love to get more people involved. Once you have successfully created your working group, you can go ahead and create the profile at that point. So we are not at that stage. We have not gotten to the point of actually physically creating the profile on the profile server. One thing that we're doing that is that has been very, very useful is we're actually using the human readable template for creating xAPI profiles. And when that work is done, like when it's actually done in the template, then we will proceed with physically creating the profile here. So that's basically the review of the work that we did on this particular profile. I'm going to go ahead and try to allow some time in case Brian is back on.
I'm not sure we have Brian back on. So thank you, Judy. It was great to it was great to see just kind of how you went about doing it and the thought process behind it. Mm-hmm. And I remember from a presentation, last cohort or maybe two cohorts ago on what's it take to develop an xAPI profile. One is to come up with your concepts, and then two is to see, are any of your concepts already in use somewhere else? And only then do you go ahead and make new. So it was really nice to see that reinforced in your thinking here.
Yeah, very much. The whole, just like the English major part of me really geeked out on this. And I'm going to get, so the project manager for this product happens to be a linguist. So we're coming at language from two different, I have an English degree and she has a linguistics degree. I'm going to get her involved in the working group as well.
You know, it's so funny that you said that, Judy, because I remember when we were back in the early days before really profiles were even thought of much, when we were talking about, when one of our teams at Torrance Learning built a xAPI learning ecosystem actually for a children's science museum, we spent a lot of time, we called it nerding out the grammar. Like, so I'm glad that the English major and you enjoyed that, because that's how we saw it also, is a very kind of language and clarity kind of exercise.
Yeah, it really reinforced to me how much, it's not just coders that are needed in this process. It's instructional designers who need to have fights about whether you throw a completion verb if somebody has just reached the last frame of the video because they could have, fast forward it. And people who understand English and linguistics and all that thing, all of that stuff. There's room for a whole lot of skills in this process, and they're needed in this process.
That's a really great point, because I have been sitting in on some of the sessions with the crew that's doing the HR Open Standards assessment profile that will be an xAPI profile also. And yeah, you know what? I sat down, I thought, man, this is a whole lot geekier than I care to get involved with. And then we started having questions around, well, what kinds of questions need to be captured on assessments, and what, and all of a sudden there was an absolute need for an instructional designer in that group.
Right.
So,
yep. Yeah, a lot of really, really interesting conversations. And do we even want to track this at all? Maybe it's useless. Maybe we do want to track it, but not for instructional design purposes, but more for UX purposes, because there's, a lot of use in xAPI for that as well. So if you want to nerd out in conversations like that, I'm sure we will have many more as we continue this profile. And actually, honestly, I had focused a lot on the verbs. as being what a profile is built on, but all of the other different types of concepts, I actually think that is going to be a lot more fun, because there are a lot of different interactions that we're going to have to like document and say what they do and everything like that. So I think it's going to be really fun to continue this.
Very cool.
And I'll let you wrap it up now. So
okay, yeah, I mean, here's while you and I talk about profiles. No, I want to give a huge thanks to everybody who joined us today and demoed, and we got to hear from a lot of voices. I'm glad we heard a little bit from Brian on one project. Brian, I think, has been working across 3 or maybe 4 different projects this semester. So thank you, everybody. And absolutely join in on some of these projects next semester, which starts up in January. And we will hope to see you at the xAPI party. So have a great rest of your week, everybody. Go out there and make something awesome, and then capture data and make decisions about that. So have a great rest of your week, and see you next cohort.